immunization is a cause for suspense that further creates anxiety in society in this century.
The curriculum focus at the Ministry of Education will be reorganized to secure supervision and evaluation of the CBC in all public, private, and special needs institutions across our country. 10, we will step up intensive teacher training program across the country. The training of tutors for teacher training colleges will also commence in January of 2019.
Amina had indicated that she was going to clear the air about the fate of the new curriculum on Monday, but sources have since intimated that President Uhuru Kenyatta on his Nyanza tour had to summon Amina and put her on notice over the confusion.
Welcome back.
26636 to replace the exam-focused 844 system of education that has been criticized for not giving students skills necessary for job market, and that it was only exam-oriented. Cecilia Kesho Madhuva, KTN News.
Well, this is a topic that we tackled earlier when we were going through the newspapers on our political pages segment. It is a top story today on the Standard newspaper saying that it's shocking. Over 365 billion shillings is what will be needed to scrap off the 844 system. And now the Cabinet Secretary seeks to suspend this rollout to 2020 to give enough time to just take a look at the processes and the amount of money and resources that need to be pumped into this. Husband, earlier on you talked about it is better we do it now than do it later. The CS Amina Mohammed seems to be cleaning up house from what she got from the predecessors. I mean, does it mean that we didn't really take a look at the process? The planning process was not very smooth and was not in tandem with the expectations and the realities of our budget?
Well, I think if you look at how we got into this from the Professor Douglas Odhiambo Kaka's commission, you'd actually understand that at some point the whole process was fairly engaging and very rigorous, and it came up with very serious recommendations. And I want to believe that at some point the commission, the commission that was set up, headed by Professor Odhiambo, must have recommended certain things that the previous education cabinet secretary probably did not enforce to the latter in terms of bringing in stakeholders, because immediately they came up with the idea of starting the pilot. A number of people are complaining that this is a really good program, and the key things that the program is supposed to help Kenyans achieve were not in line with the key things that Kenyans had. And the biggest issue was the issue of training, that how are you going to overarchingly look at the metaphysical domain of education, that is the creative domain, that education is supposed to help any member of the society who goes through that education to be creative enough to solve not just one problem, but an array of problems. And that is the core of this CBS. But at the core of it, you realize that it needed competent trainers. And I think the implementation had started without a critical look at who is going to help us achieve the critical core of making these students who are going to pass through this education system a lot more competent and a lot more creative to respond to the needs of the society that we live in today. And I think that is the gap, that at the point when we were implementing this during Matiang'i's time, there was a public outcry, and I think the ministry was probably looking for that public scorecard, which is not really a good thing to do in terms of education, because for education it's not about the public, it's about what happens in the background, because curriculum development basically starts with what is happening, what are the needs that we want, and then how do we transfer all these needs that we want in terms of actualizing these needs into skills that we can teach in schools. So that was figured out. These are the skills, these are the knowledge base that we need to give the students, which is clearly spelled out. But what was not spelled out was who is going to give them the skills, the trainers. And I think it is kudos to Ambassador Amina that they've arrested this right now, and they are handling that issue of trainers. For me, that's the biggest issue.
Mm-hmm. So it is a good thing?
It's a good thing, absolutely good thing. And I think issues to do with funding, people just need to understand that education might be expensive, but I think ignorance is a lot more expensive. But the most expensive thing is to have somebody who is little educated. because education is supposed to lead to a permanent change. So if there is a change in you, but it is not comprehensive, it's not 100%, it's 50%, then you become a lot more dangerous. Because then you have enough information to do stuff, but not to do stuff that helps you.
Kipkulei, do you agree that we'd rather do it now and get it right than do it later?
Yeah, I agree, because even the most proper of ideas can fail if you fail to plan properly for it. So when you look at what is happening is that there was a realization that if we roll out, then maybe we are going to expose our young learners to more challenges going forward. Therefore, what Amina did was the right thing. It was judicious for her to come in and really just postpone the rollouts, because education is one critical sector where we cannot really just manage in a casual manner. The only problem we have here is that it exposes the challenges and flaws in how we manage key critical sectors in our nation. So for education, for example, we have a parliamentary committee on education and other oversight organs which could have diagnosed this early enough and raised the red flag and said, hey, we have a rollout that is coming in. What is the status of your implementation? And this could even have come at the level when they were interrogating the budget, because if there is a budgetary requirement that is not then reflected in the departmental submissions, then that then calls you to question and say, how are we going to do it? So it also exposes flaws in the capacities of our oversight systems in terms of now being proactive and being able to predict challenges that will come into the future, because at the moment we seem to be a reactionary nation where we only wait because it is December, mid-December, only 2 weeks to opening of schools. I am a parent. I attended a closing ceremony, and I remember we were given a list of books that they are supposed to buy, and some of them had been indicated that they are part of this new curriculum. Now imagine a parent who had bought and prepared for everything. Then they are told now, no, wait a minute, we have to change all of this. So the implication and the disruption and the confusion they bring to parents, learners and all stakeholders is really massive, and it is something that now calls to question also our ability as a nation to chew gum and scale stairs at the same time, because it seems that the only priority for the Ministry of Education for the entire year was delivering examinations. But they seem to have forgotten that they also have there is a national rollout of a new curriculum that had to be done, which to me is more important even than these exams, because the curriculum encompasses the exam. Therefore, it's really, we are at this point where we need to start questioning so many things, not just at the ministry level, but I think what the minister did was right, but we will fault them in the extent that this had to be done in a crisis meeting. You just sit and say we are calling a crisis meeting knowing that there is a problem in December, at a time when preparations should have been done, because even the idea of even children, us knowing when this selection of Form 1 and is happening early was to facilitate early preparation by parents. So where we are as a nation, this will be a learning experience, but I think it was the right thing for the purposes of not playing with a very critical thing, which is education, that will affect the lives of ordinary and young children whose futures are very important.
All right.
Yeah. In the theory of change, we are supposed to have engaged in critical planning, evaluation, and participation. So it's very clear that the architects of this change did not engage in those three critical aspects. And in my view, the architects of this curricula that has now failed successfully should make it easy for President Kenyatta. They should hand in their resignation letters, because you cannot trust the same group that has come up with a failed project, and then you tell them now, let's forget about the past, celebrate a new beginning, herald this process all over again. Because now there'll be mixed feelings. They'll be doing it shingo upande. So in my view, the the accounting officer, authorized officer, and all the architects should make it easy for the president by resigning as soon as today, so that now the president has got the opportunity to appoint a new team.
But how possible is that? That's quite too far-fetched. People resign in this country when things don't work. They do not.
No, you said at some stage you can be an optimist or a pessimist, but at this stage I want to be an optimist. Because we are talking about education, we are talking about human capital, the most important thing for any nation. So we cannot allow people to preside over the change of our curricula who are not interested about Kenya. You know, when you speak to a number of the members of the National Assembly, they are equally surprised that we are about to change our curricula. They had expected that the responsible architects would have presented a session of paper at the National Assembly for MPs to discuss. They should have presented a session of paper to the sponsors of all these schools, the religious leaders, the unionist teachers, and everybody. But now it seems like it was a one-man show. It says we are going to change our curricula. What do we need to do? Then you rush over it. Now, if you don't produce a human resource which is solid, human capital which is solid, then in the next few years, we're just going to become a laughingstock in the village. Rwanda, a small country, is going to beat us. Maybe the question we should be asking ourselves, if there was going to be this change in a country like Denmark or Norway, which are known to have the best education systems in the world, how would they handle it? Would you trust this kind of change to one man or one woman? Or would it entail the entire nation? You know, we should even be consulting Mama Mboga, because, you know, she toils every single day to make money to pay fees. But we want to change the curricula without her knowing. As this young parent has indicated, he has invested in books, so he doesn't know what to do with those books. Is he going to use the books for purposes of JICO, or is he going to keep them somewhere?
He's going to have to wait till 2020. Let's give Chipchumba a chance to talk.
I think when we discuss about education, the unfortunate part, the people who discuss, the people who give us policy on education are the people who are beneficiaries or believers in the three things that lead this nation: politicians, gamblers, and pastors. They have no belief in education. They believe in just doing voodoo things and they deliver. How can you want to sort a country where its unemployment rate is at 37% if you do not go back to innovation? And innovation addresses itself to education. If we have a flawed education system, it will bring up flawed workforce, which in turn will mean that we have no creative Kenyans who cannot think outside the box. And that is why the biggest venture in this country is not engineering or anything. The biggest thing now is for you, Akisa, to leave college, buy 2 very shiny dresses, start preaching. That is the surest way. And for me, the other thing that I do is leave college, go back, start looking like an activist, go to politics. That is why we are where we are. But going back to whatever happened with the 844, my question and what I would have expected, the Odhiambo-led caucus did a wonderful job, and it must be commended. And then again, what happened was now where the rubber was to meet with the road for us to see action. That is why I think we missed the step. Because when you are trying to implement something new and something of that scale, you need to have periodic audits of how the thing is running. You cannot just come from the blues just because we finished or we used some magic to end exam cheating does not mean the same magic can apply for us to have a new curricula. That is a different ballgame. And then what we must look for going forward is, will the Mama Mboga and Kinamora get the value for their money? This is education. I sell everything to educate my kids so that tomorrow they have a brighter future.
Right.
I am not selling everything so that tomorrow they are pickpockets.
Okay. Husband, I want to end it with you once again because you're deep into the education system. In under a minute, for this to be alive in 2020, what then should we do before then?
Well, I think, you know, people are blowing this out of proportion. I mean, guys who have bought materials, guys who are prepared for the rollout, I don't think it's such a big deal because the pilot is extended, because it is extended for a greater good. Why am I saying so? If you look at the new curriculum, the CBS, competency-based curriculum, it is basically supposed to be having each stage as a terminal end to itself, so much so that by the time you're done with the 11th grade, you know, you are competent to do whatever you want to do. And if you move forward, by the time you're done with the 14th grade, you're competent. And then if you go all the way to the university, you're competent. So whichever way you fall or you terminate your education program, you should be competent. Now, for you to have that kind of an education system, then it means that you need to invest in materials. You need to invest not necessarily in knowledge as such, but both knowledge and skills. And what that requires is a lot of materials for teaching so that somebody is a lot more competent. And then secondly, what that requires is a situation where you have trainers who can train people at the technical level. Trainers who train people knowing that this person can actually graduate at grade 14 and be competent in what they want to be in life. And I think that is the crux of all this, that there is a lot of engagement in terms of getting the right skills to train these people and getting the right material and equipment.
All right.
And of course, to examine a skill is a lot more difficult, to get the right examination material. And it is worth the wait.
20 seconds. We are winding up.
Actually, 21 seconds. You know, the president has been complaining about a vendor-driven decision-making process at a government level. Maybe at this stage, we should ask ourselves, what is the role of vendors in these new curricula? Are they the ones who are driving the decision-making process so that they can make a coin out of it?
Thank you very much. That's how we wrap it up. But husband, you will be lynched for saying that it's not a big deal for parents. They expect a government that does things in order. Yeah. Exactly.
For a greater good.
We expect a government that does things in order. But gentlemen,